Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. A new season begins on Saturday as Purdue and Indiana State kick off the 2024 campaign inside Ross-Ade Stadium. It's been more than 270 days since Purdue last took the field, but it's the best time of the year once again. College football is back. On the show here today, we'll get you ready for Saturday's game and the entire 2024 Purdue season. I'll make my annual record prediction, along with some other lukewarm takes about this year's squad. Of course, you'll get a full preview of the Sycamores as well. We'll wrap this up, as always, with some questions from the audience, as well as some of your predictions that you guys sent over on Twitter, where you should be following, @BoilersBeyond. I'll be live tweeting every game this year. Looking forward to that on Saturday. Tons to talk about. Lots of college football talk in general. If you're a college football fan, if you're a Purdue fan, you should be following. You can also send questions for any future podcast there on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond, or you can email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe. We come at you twice a week during the season. Not sure what we'll do on the 2 bye weeks. I know the second bye week will be the Purdue basketball preview episode in late October. Not sure about the week 2 bye. We'll see how much there is to talk about from this game. But be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. Sunday morning, the post-game reaction podcast will be in your feeds. Let's get into it, though. Purdue versus Indiana State to kick off a new season. This is a noon kickoff on the Big Ten Network. Looks like it's going to be a nice day for football. A little on the warm side, temperature above 80. But as of now, Monday night, still a long way to go in the weather world. Looks good for Purdue and Indiana State to square off. Maybe not as hot as some season openers in the past. Shades of Middle Tennessee in 2011. Fresno State last year was a warm one. Trying to think. Those two come to mind for sure. But it's Indiana State. Purdue is 6-0 all-time against the Sycamores. Last time these two played, a 56-0 domination in week 2 of the 2022 season. Aiden O'Connell dominated them. Didn't even play in the second half. Not exactly a memorable series here. You go back to Daryl Hazel's first win at Purdue, a 20-14 game where they had to hang on for dear life at the end with a Ricardo Allen interception. Who could ever forget that one? But it's not been a very memorable series because this is not a particularly good program. It has been all right at times. It is not very good right now. Indiana State, over the past 2 seasons, is a combined 3-19. Last year, the Sycamores only broke double digits scoring in 3 of their 11 games. So, in 8 games, they were held below 10 points. That is not very good. 2 FBS opponents last year to kind of give a better measuring stick against. They went to Bloomington, lost 41-7 to Indiana, and they went to Muncie, losing 45-7 to Ball State, neither of which were particularly good teams last year. Indiana State couldn't throw the ball. 7 touchdowns to 14 interceptions is a really, really bad stat line for a team throwing the football. 143 yards per game through the air, just a tick over 50% completion as a team, under 6 yards per attempt. Not a good passing offense, and only 3.4 yards per carry. Not a very good rushing offense either. Indiana State only mustered up 264 yards of offense per game. That's bad. That's really, really bad. And as you look at it, I don't know that there are tons of reasons to be optimistic that things are going to be tremendously better in Terre Haute this year. Preseason predictions are what they are, but Indiana State picked to finish 10th out of the 11 teams in the Missouri Valley. it's kind of a downtrodden program at this point. Kurt Mallory certainly has a big name in Indiana, being Bill Mallory's son. And with these FCS schools, it's hard to tell how much a school truly cares, truly wants to win. It doesn't seem like Indiana State is all that serious about trying to win right now. All time, Purdue is undefeated against FCS schools. That should not change in this game. I can't sit here and pretend to know the ins and outs of the Indiana State roster. There's not very much coverage of Indiana State football to gain insight from. Normally, with these podcasts, there's something I can glean. There's an On3 site, or there's a particularly good beat reporter on Twitter, or at bare minimum, they're covered in the preview magazines. But for FCS schools, that's not the case. 4 guys on defense made Phil Steele's preseason all-conference team for the Missouri Valley. So there you go. That's something I was able to find. Just from a very far-away glance, it seems like Indiana State's defense is better than the offense, but I don't know that either is a great unit. Indiana State still gave up 30 points a game last year. Now, probably hard to do much better when your offense is as poor as it was. Purdue should dominate this game. This should not be close. You don't need to run up the score. You don't need to make a complete fool of yourself and leave your starters out there deep into the game to make a statement and get this score just some astronomical number. But this is one you should cruise in. You don't want to have your starters playing deep into the third quarter. You don't want to have to do much besides operate a very simple game plan and a very simplified playbook. You've got 11 straight tough games after this. Don't show more to Notre Dame than you need to. Don't show more to your future opponents than you need to. Purdue doesn't need to run a ton of plays, and I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit, but you don't need to be playing complete hurry up here, especially once this game, if all goes well, gets out of hand. Bleed that clock, run fewer plays, get out of there, stay healthy. Purdue cannot afford to start piling up injuries. It has a few. Nyland Green and C.J. Smith are both out for the opener. Nyland Green, corner, transfer from Georgia, out with a foot injury. C.J. Smith, fellow Georgia transfer at wide receiver, has a hamstring injury. Those two are definitively out, and per Ryan Walters' press conference today, said Corey Stewart is questionable at left tackle. If he can't go, IU transfer Joshua Sales is behind him on the depth chart at left tackle. See if that's what happens, see if Purdue mixes things up at all, or if that's just where Purdue goes. But look, healthy or not healthy, this is a bad team Purdue's playing. This is the right kind of game to open up with. It was interesting in Walter's press conference today. He got asked about these FCS games, and he said in a perfect world, you have 9 conference games, so you'd love to have 3 FCS games. He's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. You want to have these comfortable wins. You want to be able to ease into things a little bit. You see the benefit of it. This is a sport where you want to have as many answers as you can by the time you start playing some good competition. That's going to come for Purdue in game 2. It's not going to come for Purdue in game 1. I've got Purdue winning 42-6. This is as I record, and I'll pull it up to make sure it's still accurate. Last I saw was a 32.5 point spread with Purdue favored. That is quite a high number, but it's probably about right. It's not a very good Indiana State team, to say the least. It's not. This is not one. Still 32.5 with an over-under of 48.5. So kind of an implied score here of like 40-8, something in that ballpark. It's projected to be a blowout. I've got Purdue winning this one with ease. Some notes on the depth chart here that came out today. these kind of sneak up on you. You know, you get all excited for the season and you kind of forget that most programs release a depth chart Monday mornings of game week. Ryan Brown was listed as QB2 over Marco Stavala. I am going to guess, and I don't know this, I'm going to guess we see both of them on Saturday. That Purdue gets out to an early lead, it can pull Hudson Card, and it can get both of those guys on the field. It's going to be mop-up duty. It's not like you're going to be throwing downfield a whole lot and taking deep shots. But I bet Purdue gets both of them on the field, gives them both some reps. The biggest storyline, I think, for most would be that you have two true freshmen listed as starters for Saturday's game. It's worth noting that these two are kind of the placeholders, I think, for the two Georgia guys who are out with injury. Terrion Grant, early enrollee at corner, is going to start alongside Markevius Brown on the outside. Grant's a big guy, man. 6'2" at corner, true freshman getting out there. I'm excited to see what he has to offer. Very highly regarded recruit coming in early. That was a good get for Purdue. That was a really good get. And then Shamar Rigby at wide receiver got a lot of praise early on as a true freshman. You kind of have to be on the field right away. He's going to start in the spot that most would have projected C.J. Smith would fill. I didn't expect either of these coming, but, you know, good for Purdue. This is a chance to get guys out there. I think that wide receiver spot, I would expect Purdue rotates a ton there. I don't know how much separation Purdue has. You know, Shamar Rigby, Leland Smith, Jerron Tibbs, Denylon Morissette, Andrew Sawinski. I think Jamal Adrine's probably a cut above the rest. You have Jaden Dixon-Veal. That's like 8 names right there. If you factor in C.J. Smith, who's not there, who you can realistically expect to play a sizable role this year. You got to whittle that down a bit, but you can get him out there and let him see the field some against Indiana State. Let the cards fall as they may. And then at defensive back, look, I think it's probably encouraging that Terrion Grant is where he is so far. I'm not going to sit here and say Botros Alessandro was, you know, an all-world Deion Sanders corner last year. When he played, he had ups and downs. So did Derek Rogers Jr., who's backing up Markevius Brown. If you're bringing in freshmen who are better than what you had last year, and it's reasonable to think those guys probably got a little bit better, it's reasonable to think here Purdue could be improved pretty significantly at that corner spot. So something interesting to monitor there. Lots of freshmen in general. I mean, it was a talented freshman class Purdue brought in, but a lot of freshmen here. And then no listed starting kicker. Purdue has a slash mark, has an or between Ben Freehill and Spencer Porath. I don't think that's ideal, given your special team struggles last season. Better find an answer. You don't have to have one right away. We'll see if Purdue has field goal opportunities and see who goes out there. But you can't go deep into the season without a kicker. You just can't. Spencer Porath was kind of brought in to be the guy. I know it's a big ask for a true freshman, but we'll see if he's able to answer the call. Regardless, you can't go 8 for 17 on field goal attempts this year. It just cannot happen. All right, it's time to make a season prediction. I do this every year. I make a record prediction. For historical purposes, 2021, I'm not counting the COVID year because those games got canceled and that was just a really weird year in general. But 2021, I said Purdue would go 6-6. Purdue ended up going 8-4. And this is just regular season. If I have Purdue bowl eligible, I'm not picking a bowl game. You don't know the opponent. You don't know who's opting out. We don't pick bowl games here. 2022, I said Purdue would go 8-4. Purdue did go 8-4. Last season, I had Purdue 5-7. Purdue went 4-8. So I've been around it most years. 2021 was the biggest miss. I think the schedule makes this really complicated. I like what Purdue did to improve the roster. I've said it before, and I truly believe it. I think Purdue got better at nearly every position group coming into this year. I'm not sure about running back. I'm not high on the defensive line. Edge rusher would be hard to be better than last year, but outside of that, from a pure power ratings perspective, this year's team would be favored against last year's team, probably by a not insignificant margin. I think this is a better team. As we've talked about ad nauseum, the schedule really limits the upside. You have 4 games against top 10 teams. It's not impossible to pull an upset there, but when you're, just going through with the Sharpie, you're tentatively putting that thing in as a loss. If you lose all of those, you're then 8-4. Go to Wisconsin. That's been a house of horrors for Purdue. Can you win everything else then? That's a really big ask. I think as you predict this season, Purdue is extremely quarterback dependent. This is not new for Purdue, mind you. This was exactly how Purdue was to a certain degree, maybe even more so, going into 2022. Because as we saw in that bowl game against LSU and in that game against Florida Atlantic, that Purdue team didn't have that Purdue team didn't have Aiden O'Connell. It was terrible. If this Purdue team doesn't have Hudson Card, the season's in grave danger. If Hudson Card goes down, this probably turns into a 2019-like season where Purdue played a ton of young guys, but it was not ready to beat a credible opponent with Jack Plummer or Aiden O'Connell playing quarterback. That's kind of where I see this year's backup quarterback room. I don't know that Purdue can win games with it. Maybe it can. Maybe I'll be wrong. But Purdue's got to have Hudson Card healthy. It just has to. In the transfer portal era, I think the health is going to be a really big key. I think you're going to have a lot of turnover on some of these middle to bottom Big Ten teams, the grouping of Minnesota, of Purdue, of Illinois, of Michigan State, of Maryland, yada, yada. If you stay healthy, you're probably going to be the better of the bunch, and you can't project health. We don't really have that foresight. So with that, I'm going to go Purdue at 5-7 this year. And that would go over the over-under win total in Las Vegas. That's 4.5, juiced heavily to the under. Purdue's got to start strong. If you're 1-3 after September, this season is going to feel really long. Kind of like last year did. This is going to be a rough season if Purdue is 1-3. But on the flip side, if you're 2-1 with Nebraska coming to town, or my goodness, if you pull the upset against Notre Dame, the juice in the stadium is going to be palpable. It's really going to be something. You've got to take care of business against your peer programs. You've got to beat Oregon State on the road. I don't think Nebraska at home will come easily, but can you defend your home turf there? Go to Illinois and win. Can you take care of business against Northwestern? How about Michigan State and Indiana on the road? These are the games you need to win. If you pull off a big upset, all the better. But you've got to just take care of business in these games that you can win, because that's how you get to the next level. It's not by springing the big upset. It's by winning the game when you're a slight favorite at home and you're able to do so. After the break, I'll go into some other predictions here before I get into yours. This episode is brought to you by me, yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I want to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me at jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com, and let's protect you from life's everyday risks. So a few other predictions here. I kind of always vary how I do these. Look, I don't have a bunch of just spicy takes that I'm going to spit out here. This is a new look roster, and I don't know what to expect fully. A few thoughts. It's early. I think Purdue's going to have a really inspired effort against Notre Dame. Obviously, we'll talk about this much more in the Notre Dame preview episode, but Purdue will be coming off a bye. It's going to be a juiced-up environment in Ross-Ade. There will still be plenty of Notre Dame fans, but that's going to be a big environment. CBS in town for it. I like Purdue to really compete in that game. If Hudson Card stays healthy, I think he gets drafted next year. Now, he's not going to be a first-rounder. He's not going to be viewed as a franchise quarterback, but I think he has enough tools that if he's healthy, I think he's going to have a nice season, and I think he could be a 6th or 7th round draft pick. I'll roll with it again for the second straight year. I like Devin Mockabee to hit the 1,000-yard mark, becoming the first Purdue tailback since Corey Sheets in 2008 to do so. I'm high on Mockabee. I'm interested to see the load, the split of the load between he and Reggie Love. Purdue kind of made it seem like in press conferences today that was going to be more of a 50-50 thing. I don't know. Maybe it is. And if that's the case, it might be tougher for Mockabee to get there. But I think he does. And if he does that, if Mockabee hits 1,000 yards this season, he's in the top 5 of all-time rushing at Purdue. Believe it or not. Pretty crazy. I think overall, Purdue's defensive metrics will take a small step forward this year, but we're going to look ahead to 2025 is where it can really, really improve. I don't love what Purdue has on the defensive line. Purdue stopping the run against some better opponents is something I'm really going to be watching. How much can Purdue generate a pass rush? That's got to be decent enough because I think the secondary is better, but if you can't get after the passer, you kind of are in the same spot you were at last year, just with the roles reversed. Interested to see that. I think Purdue will be better defensively, but you're going to get a lot of guys back for 25, and I think that's when you look at a defense that could be really, really nice, more like what Ryan Walters wants to do. As far as the Big Ten goes, I like Ohio State to win the league. Give me them over Oregon in the conference title game. I know it's not very original, but it's now or never in Columbus. Ryan Day's got to win the Big Ten this year. He's got to make a deep run in the playoffs. I think he does. They have a elite roster. I think they'll be in good shape. Michigan might be the team I'm most fascinated to see in the Big Ten. What do they look like after how much they lost? What does Sharon Moore's program look like without Jim Harbaugh? I don't know. What do they do at quarterback? If Iowa can have a semi-competent offense, I think Iowa's going to win 10 games. If Iowa gets an okay offense, it's going to be a playoff team. Yes. Look at that schedule. It is a breeze besides a trip to Ohio State. It's not out of the question that if Iowa's offense is much better, it can make the college football playoff. By the time you're listening to this, you may have already seen Minnesota's season opener on Thursday night, but I'm really low on Minnesota. That could age poorly pretty quickly. Not big on Northwestern either. Last season was truly remarkable for Northwestern. I don't think they're going to bounce back and do the same. Not big on Northwestern. I'm not sure if I buy the Rutgers hype. Rutgers should be a lot better. I don't know that it will be. I don't know. Rutgers should be better. The schedule really favors it, but it's still Rutgers. see what happens there. But there you go. We'll get to some of your predictions here momentarily. I did have one thought from watching the Week 0 games that I wanted to talk about here. Week 0 is what it is. I enjoy it, but it's like a petite house salad coming to your table before you have a 40-ounce porterhouse coming, because Week 0 is just so small compared to what Week 1 is, where you have 4 big-time games, 5 big-time games this week. But something that really stood out in the Florida State-Georgia Tech game was the pace. Both teams only had 7 possessions. And now, part of that is that there weren't a lot of incomplete passes. Both teams ran the ball a ton. The game went quick. But also, there's the in-helmet communication now, where the quarterback can hear from the head coach or offensive coordinator until there are 15 seconds left on the play clock. It's like the NFL. It's amazing how as soon as there was a sign stealing allegation, this finally got greenlit in college football. Crazy how that works. But nonetheless, if that is causing teams to work the play clock down lower on every snap so they can maximize that communication, you could see some slower games here, kind of like the NFL. You could see some longer possessions. You could see fewer possessions for teams in games. That's interesting to see. Now, one game is not remotely enough data to go off of here, but that's something to keep an eye on. How does Purdue use the helmet communication? Does it entirely use it? Do you have a 2-minute situation where you have signals coming in? How about road games in some super loud environments? When you go to Ohio State, when you go to Wisconsin, are you going to be able to use the helmet communication? Are you going to be able to hear? I don't know. Don't seem to be problems in the NFL, but the NFL is nothing compared to college football in terms of crowd noise. So that's something that kind of slipped my mind. And it's something I'm going to be really interested to monitor this season, is that helmet communication. Getting into question and answer here before some of your predictions, I was asked about Dylan Thienemann's interception total. I'm going to go another 6 interceptions for Dylan Thienemann this year. I wouldn't be stunned by a number of outcomes. I've said that I would not be super surprised if he had a downtick in stats. As his awareness grows, people are more aware of him. But I don't know. I think he's still going to have a pretty big year. I think he's going to make some plays. How many yards per game will Purdue run for? How many will it allow through the air? Good question here. Purdue ran the ball for 168 yards per game last year. That is historically really, really good for Purdue. Remarkable, really. That was top 5 in the conference. I don't know if I see Purdue replicating that this year. I do think the rushing attack could be good. I like Devin Mockabee. Reggie Love's a really experienced back. You need those two to stay healthy because you don't have much depth behind them. But I'll go 160 yards per game. In theory, you want Hudson Card running the ball less. You got to keep him healthy. And if one of those running backs goes down, a lot of questions are behind them. And then through the air, Purdue allowed 241 a game. That was last in the Big Ten. Purdue did not exactly play a lot of great quarterbacks either. I'll say Purdue knocks this down to like 225. I think the secondary is going to be better. I'm very concerned about the pass rush. Will Helt has a lot of potential. I think you're going to see some of that this year, but you need to. You need that to be more than potential. You need that to be production. Sheeta Saleh, CJ Madden, Jaire Ojada, Trey Smith. Who else breaks out? Helps get pressure after the quarterback. Because if you're not, man coverage, someone will always get open. Someone will always get open. So Purdue's really got to be able to pressure the quarterback. And then this was a long one here, but an email from a good longtime listener said that the Oregon State and Nebraska game are crucial to laying the groundwork for a successful season. His concern is that Purdue could kind of come out flat against Oregon State after, getting up to play Notre Dame, really giving Notre Dame a good run, come out flat against Oregon State, and then if you lose that, you're 1-2 against an improved Nebraska team. Said that Notre Dame has always been Purdue's in-season bowl game. He hopes that Walters and company can keep the team on an even keel. Noted that Purdue has a tendency to play down to its opponents in the past, Rutgers, Nevada, etc. This is kind of the classic of what Jeff Brom used to always hint at when he would say it's a one-game season every single week, which got tiring after a while, but the point does remain true. The other anecdote, you can't let an opponent beat you twice. It's all the same stuff. You've heard all the coach speak in the world. Purdue's going to have to play a really great game to have a shot at beating Notre Dame. That historically, in modern memory, is a program that doesn't beat itself very much. It's going to be sound. It's going to do the basics very well. There are concerns, and we'll dive into that more on Notre Dame week, especially after see if that offensive line can handle A&M, led by Nick Scorton this week. But Purdue's going to have to be great in that game. If it's not good enough, and I think kind of the thing you're alluding to here is that Purdue plays really well and loses a close game, yeah, you got to bounce back. I mean, it's the next week begins on Sunday morning. I'm interested to see this game because I've talked about it a bit. It's not a modern rivalry. Like, even these guys who are from Indiana playing in this game, when this series ended in 2014, how old were these guys? They were in like elementary school. They didn't grow up watching Purdue and Notre Dame play the way a lot of us did who grew up in Indiana, who grew up Purdue fans. That's not a thing anymore. So there's not this built-in disdain of Notre Dame. Now, it's still Notre Dame. It's still a big brand. Purdue's going to be excited to play them. There's some validity to this, too. Think back to that Notre Dame game in 2021. Purdue went to South Bend, lost to Notre Dame, came home, and then played an abysmal 13-9 win over Illinois. That was brutal. That was a brutal game that Purdue got lucky to win as TJ Sheffield went front flipping into the end zone. That was rough. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. You can't let Notre Dame linger longer than it is. You can't make that game bigger than just one game. You've got to be at minimum 2-2 by the end of September. If it's 1-3, if you're turning the page to October and going to Camp Randall at 1-3, season is probably more or less over. You're not going to go to a bowl, and then you're playing for the future. In general, Purdue's not good enough to play down to opponents. It normally isn't. It definitely isn't this year. Not against this schedule. Closing this thing out with a few of your predictions. I appreciate those of you who tweeted them in. Obviously, this is a Purdue podcast, so we're going to be a little more optimistic with some of the predictions that come in. First one said 5-7. Purdue wins the bucket. The only double-digit loss is at Ohio State, and Jamal Adrine has a monster year. If Purdue has 6 losses of single digits this season, that's going to bode really well for 2025. I don't want to get all Phil Steele on you here because this is the classic staple of his magazine. If you lost a lot of close games the year before, you're going to be better, and vice versa. If you won a lot of close games, you're going to take a step back. But it's the old theory. You lose big, lose close, win big. It's a Bobby Bowden thing, right? Is that it's part of the growth of a program. Purdue lost big quite a bit last year. This would mean Purdue's losing close, getting closer to that next step. in terms of winning the bucket, that's kind of a must for Purdue this year, is you gauge success. You lose that, that's a real bummer. 5-7, cash the win total over. And yeah, Jamal Adrine is going to be interesting to watch. Returns on him, just the praise could not be any higher. We'll see what that looks like. Had a 6-6. Had one say in the 6-6, Hudson Card becomes the best quarterback in the Big Ten with over 2,500 yards. Maccabee has a 200-yard game this year, and the defense significantly improves. Keep in mind, the Heisman favorite right now, Dylan Gabriel, is a quarterback in the Big Ten. So either something has to happen to him or he has to have a really down year, because 2,500 yards would not be a ton for Hudson Card. I think he's going to be over 3,000. I think he probably needs to be. But 6-6, Maccabee with a 200-yard game. That's a lot of yards if they're going to split carries, but we'll see what happens. If there's a game Reggie Love can't go, then yeah, Maccabee might get all the carries in the world. Defense significantly improves. That's really important for Purdue having an improved season. Had 2 7-5s. The first one said that the offense averages 35 a game and that Purdue beats one of Notre Dame, Penn State, or Oregon. That would make Purdue a top 20 offense in scoring offense based off last year's scoring numbers. A lot of questions about Graham Harrell would be out the window, and there are some takes from last fall that would not age particularly well if Purdue put up 35 a game. If that happens, if the offense is scoring 35 a game and you pull off one of those upsets at home, you're putting this season among the better ones in Purdue history. With all these predictions, I think if Purdue goes 7-5, this season belongs in that conversation. 7-5, Hudson Card 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, Maccabee 1,200, Adrine 800 yards, 4-0 to start the season. That'd be huge. Now, keep in mind here, a 4-0 September. That means there's going to be a semi-disappointing loss in there if Purdue went 3-5 the rest of the way. Because we'll say, lose at Wisconsin, lose to Oregon, lose to Ohio State, lose to Penn State. You'd have to lose another one to get to 7-5. So is it Illinois, Northwestern, Michigan State, Indiana? I don't know that you'd love losing any of those games. Maybe at Michigan State, maybe at Illinois. I don't think you want to lose to Northwestern or Indiana, but that's an interesting one. And then the last one is the optimistic one. Purdue goes 8-4, loses to the top 10 opponents, wins out. 11 interceptions for Nyland Green. Card second in passing in the Big Ten. This would, of course, have Purdue winning in Camp Randall. This would be out of this world. Ryan Walters would skyrocket in the hot boards for some of the bigger jobs that become available. I know you probably don't want to think about that, but if Purdue goes 8-4, that's going to be the case. 11 interceptions would be nuts. That'd be one of the best seasons from a corner in NCAA history. This would be the most impressive season Purdue's ever produced, if you ask me. If you go 8-4 against this schedule, yeah, I would probably say that's the most impressive season in school history. Put that up with, 84 when Purdue beat Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame. Obviously the 2000 Rose Bowl, but that was an 8-4 season, 8-3 regular season. Purdue does that. My goodness, what a year it would be. Guys, college football is back. I am thrilled to have another season coming up with you guys. I appreciate you who have listened throughout the summer. The period between the Final Four and the start of the Countdown to Kickoff series is always really rough. I appreciate those of you who bear with me, who tweet to me to help fill the void. From now until March or April, we don't have a void. We've got plenty to talk about. We've got Purdue football. We have Purdue basketball. Let's get into it. Games start on Saturday. Safe travels to those of you who are coming up to West Lafayette for the game. Enjoy it. This is all I have for today's podcast. So enjoy the game this weekend. College football is back. There are some great games Saturday. There's a great game Sunday night. Thursday is not bad. Friday is not great, but it's football. It's back. It's the best time of the year. Be sure to follow on Twitter. Come join the conversation. I'll talk to you Sunday morning after Purdue and Indiana State. Enjoy the game, everyone.